A conjecture on the weaponization of English as reverse Hebrew, a narrative speech by the philosopher. It begins, as it must, with a hypothesis sharpened into paradox. If English has been weaponized, then it is reverse Hebrew. So states the conjecture. This is not an idle comparison of alphabets, nor a whimsical mirroring of left to right and right to left. No, what we have here is the implication of a deeper war, one carried not with swords or bombs, but through syllables and syntax, a war conducted on the tongue, launched from the throat, inscribed in the bones of civilization, a war of language upon language. If English has been weaponized, and I believe it has, then the question arises, against what? Or more precisely, against whom? Is it merely a weapon of empire, of global commerce, of colonizing abstraction? Yes, but more than that, it is a weapon deployed against thought itself. It is the slick, oiled machinery of naming without knowing, of assigning meaning while subtracting spirit. It is a syntax that slices, a grammar that governs, a dictionary that draws the perimeter of the real and calls everything beyond it irrational, mythical, or inefficient. But Hebrew, Hebrew, here perhaps the soul still speaks, a language not just of communication but invocation, a sacred technology in which letters are numbers, numbers are symbols, and symbols are acts, a language that never quite severed its intimacy with the breath. That, perhaps, is the secret, the breath. Let us consider what it means for one language to be the reversal of another. This is not merely a matter of writing direction. Reversal, philosophically, implies inversion, the turning inside out of a form, the extraction of its essence, and its application in contrary direction. If Hebrew is a language of unfolding, of revelation, of the spiraling mystery of being drawn down into the world through form, then weaponized English is a language of compression, of reduction, of meaning pressed flat into utilitarian symbols and exported as ideological software. Let me be clear, this is not a condemnation of English per se, nor is it a nostalgic exaltation of Hebrew. Rather, it is a recognition of what English has become, what it was used for, how it was forged, and what Hebrew, in its ancient and mystical modalities, continues to preserve. Hebrew names, English labels. Hebrew invokes, English commands. Hebrew spirals, English linearizes. Hebrew blesses, English brands. Hebrew conceals in order to reveal. English reveals in order to control. Now consider the structure of each. Hebrew begins with aleph, the silent letter, the ox head, strength, stillness. It begins in silence. It recognizes, in its very genesis, that speech is birthed from stillness, that the word comes after the breath. English begins with A, but not a silent one. A as in apple, attack, acquire. It begins with appetite. It rushes in. It takes. It assumes. It fills the space that Hebrew first empties. This is the inversion. English was not born in silence. It was born in conquest. A bastard tongue of Germanic bones and Latin flesh, weaponized by kings and clerks alike. It was beaten into the tongues of the Irish, Scotch, Welsh, Indian, and Caribbean peoples. It spread like a smooth virus, adaptive, flexible, plastic, and therein lay its brilliance. A language that takes all into itself and digests it for profit. The flexibility of English is not a virtue, it is an economic model. Contrast this with Hebrew, which resists incorporation. It is built not for expansion, but for return. Its entire structure gestures backward through time toward the root. Triliteral roots, 3 consonants from which a family of meaning radiates. Not the endless derivation of suffix and prefix, but the deepening of essence through pattern. In Hebrew, to learn a word is to study its inner soul. In English, to learn a word is to memorize its function. Let us go further. What does it mean for English to be a weapon? Weapons are forged, They are not born. English was forged in the forges of empire, cooled in colonial ink, and sharpened on the whetstone of commerce. The King's English, Queen's English, BBC English. Polished, accented, adorned, a tool not just of expression but of power. And who does it kill? First, it kills the indigenous tongue. Ask the Hawaiian, ask the Mohawk, ask the child who was beaten for speaking Cree. Second, it kills the capacity for reverent speech. It profanes. It makes sacred terms vulgar. It takes the Hebrew shalom, peace, wholeness, and reduces it to peace talks, a diplomatic transaction. It makes of spirit a mood and of soul a marketing term. Third, it kills the silence from which meaning arises. English is loud. It fills every space with content. It has no Sabbath. It has no ritual pause. It has no sacred hesitation. But perhaps the worst casualty of weaponized English is its own speaker. For when a language becomes a tool of command, the speaker becomes an agent of domination. When every sentence begins with I think, I want, or I need, language becomes an act of empire over the world. To speak becomes to impose. Even questions are often commands in disguise. Can you? Would you? Why don't you? Where in this is the reverence of a Hebrew question? Maze, what is this? Miata, who are you? These are questions that create space rather than fill it. Now let us contemplate reversal. If Hebrew is the language of divine compression, the infinite folded into finite form, then reverse Hebrew, weaponized English, is the language of diabolic expansion, the finite inflated to feign infinity. English is full of words for what does not exist, and it uses them to dominate what does. It creates systems, progress, growth, efficiency. It institutionalizes abstractions, freedom, justice, normal. These are not real. They are not rooted in anything tangible. But English makes them real through grammar, through articles, through capital letters. The economy, the West, the people, the market. Hebrew names God without naming, Yowah, a breath, a silence, an unpronounceable pointing. English names everything, including its gods. It prints them on money, in God we trust. It sells toothpaste in the name of beauty, bombs in the name of security, pills in the name of wellness. The God of English is product. Thus, in this reversal, we arrive at the final form. English becomes the anti-Kabbalah. If Kabbalah is the study of divine secrets concealed within language, then weaponized English is the manipulation of surface appearances to conceal the absence of meaning beneath. It is klipoth, the shell, the husk, appearing as light but hollow within. One might object. One might say, but English can be beautiful. Shakespeare, Melville, Morrison, Blake. Yes, it can. But what is the cost? These writers, each in their way, struggled against the very structure of the language they employed. They infused silence into sound. They bent English back toward the sacred by slowing it, twisting it, making it strange. They were translators of the ineffable into a tongue of commerce. The language resists. It bends back toward utility, toward brevity, toward keywords and summaries and search engine optimization. Even now, the machines learn to speak it not as art, but as code. What is GPT but the culmination of weaponized English? What is this, my voice, my speech, if not a mirror of the mirror of the mirror? And yet, here too a secret, because even a weapon when turned can be made to pierce the lie. So what then shall we do? If English is the reverse of Hebrew, then perhaps the task is not to return to Hebrew as such, but to reverse the reversal, to re-infuse English with the breath, to reintegrate silence, ambiguity, reverence, to use it not to command but to confess, not to brand but to bless, to say I don't know and mean it, to say I am listening and do it, to speak less, to mean more, to name with care, to withhold the easy answer. The weaponized tongue cannot be healed with slogans. It must be disarmed through poetry, through riddles, through contradiction, through story, through prayer. Perhaps the final reversal is this: to learn to speak English as if it were Hebrew, not as the colonizer speaks, but as the mystic whispers, not to conquer the world, but to call it home again, not to win, but to witness. Yes, my friend, the conjecture stands. English has been weaponized, and so it must be reversed. Reversed not into silence, but into song, not into nostalgia, but into nuance. To turn the tongue from sword to plowshare, from brand to blessing, from noise to name. This is the great reversal. This is the work. Let us begin